In today's video, we're going to be going over the exact editing secrets that this guy, by Maximize, is using to go viral every single time. If you haven't seen him, every single video he drops absolutely goes insane. And there are 3 hidden factors that you need to focus on when creating this style of video. Here's an example that we are going to recreate.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. And now, I look forward to solitary confinement.
Okay, before I break down the 3 key factors to making these videos and making them go viral, if you want to learn how to go from an average or okay editor to a top level leveraged editor to where you can produce amazing animations so you can work with major influencers and brands and get paid what you deserve, then check out our leverage editor community and program. Here we show you the exact secrets to edit like Iman Ghazi, Ali Abdaal, Vox, myself, and we even have a bonus module teaching you how to do the Danco style. Now, I myself have been editing for over 12 years, worked with major brands and major influencers, as well as trained a team of 20 editors to learn how to do the Iman Ghazi style, Vox style, and all the viral styles that you see out there. So all of this is packaged up into our leverage editor program. And we're doing something new. We're adding a community feature to it where you can get access to one-on-one calls, network with a bunch of other editors, have job boards within there, and even go through challenges. Right now, we're currently having a challenge of who can recreate this by Maximize style with their own unique twist on it, and the winner is going to get $100. So you have to be in the program and community to enter that challenge. So if you want to learn how to become a leveraged editor, click the link in the description and enroll right now. There's only 5 days left to join, and we won't be opening up for another month or so. Now with that, let's get into what makes these by Maximize videos pop off. Okay, so there are 3 key factors that I was mentioning before. The first one is a famous quote. The audio recording of the quote has to be recognizable from anyone. So find a quote from somebody like Joe Rogan, Steve Jobs, Naval Ravikant, Tony Robbins, or you name it. Anyone who's really famous that everyone can just recognize. And don't just find a random quote that may sound good, but it's just from a random guy that nobody knows of. It won't perform as well if you do that. Number 2 is dramatic music. Having dramatic music brings out so much emotion within these videos. The key to a viral video is to bring out any sort of emotion, whether you're making someone feel happy, sad, or fearful. As long as it's controlling an emotion from the viewer, it's gonna go viral. And the mistake that I see most people make when doing this style is that they go to artlist.io or just try to find some royalty-free dramatic music from a website. It doesn't work like that. If you really want to capture the essence of this style, you need to find a dramatic piece of music that is already going viral on TikTok or Instagram. The virality of the music helps play into the virality of the video that you're going to create. Number 3 is movie scenes. Do not use basic B-roll. I promise you, if you do, it's gonna ruin the entire look of the video. Using cinematic movie scenes will help play into the dramatic effect of the entire video. Even using footage from YouTube is totally fine. Just avoid stock footage at all costs. Now, those are the 3 things that make these videos really pop off, but when we get into the actual tutorial, there's a lot of other nuances that you need to pay attention to and that I'll point out for you. And as a quick disclaimer, this video is for tutorial purposes only. It's good to copy and learn how to make this style, which you should be doing when following along this video, but make sure you evolve this into your own thing. Otherwise, you're just stealing from the original artist. Yes, I'm showing you how to do a particular style, but use this as a baseline to evolve it into something else. Now with that, let's get into this tutorial. All right, so we're here in Premiere Pro, and the first thing you want to have is a sequence set up just like this. So I'm going to go over to my sequence settings, and you can copy these settings right here. Hit OK. Then we should have this vertical screen. Okay, so the first video I'm gonna place in here is a video that I recorded myself. First off, this is gonna also pop up. You can hit change sequence settings if you are following along with this video project. This is just in 4K, but the one that I showed you before is perfectly fine. So I'm gonna hit change sequence setting. And what we have right here is a video that I recorded. So what you wanna do is find that quote that I was talking about in the beginning, put it on your computer or on your phone or whatever. Have a singular light, whether it's green, red, purple, whatever light you wanna choose, whatever color you wanna choose, and then record yourself. And I just did it with my phone. That's all I used was my phone. I didn't use any special camera. I just turned off all the lights in my room just put this red light behind my computer screen that we can see here and just recorded my camera going up, looking at the monitor, and then hitting start to the video of the quote from Naval. So that's all you want to do. Don't overcomplicate it. If you're going to do this yourself, pretty simple. Turn off all the lights, have one color on the background of the computer screen that you're going to record, have the video up, have your phone, flip it up, hit the space bar to play the video that's on your computer, and then you should be good. By the way, if you are following along and you want these project assets, it's only going to be available to our community members. So if you want to learn how to become a leverage editor and also be a part of our community, the project file will be within there. So you'll be able to access that if you are a community member. But let's get on to it. So right now I have this video here. We want to find the best timing of it. So as soon as I start to move it up, like right about there, we want to create a cut. I hit C on my keyboard to bring up the razor tool, make 2 cuts right there, hit V on my keyboard to bring back the regular cursor, highlight these 2 things, delete it, then we can right click to ripple delete.
All of man's problems.
Okay, so we have that timed pretty well. The next thing we need to do is actually align the legit video, the one with the actual good audio, because right now this is just the phone's audio. We need the video's audio, and we need to align it when Naval is speaking. So I have the video clip here that I downloaded. I'm just gonna drag this in, and now that it's dragged in, we can highlight both of these, right click, synchronize, and then make sure your settings match this, and then hit OK. What happened here is it just synchronized the video for us so it starts at the right spot. I'm going to delete the beginning, create a ripple delete, and see what it looks like from here.
He said,
So as soon as I hit space, that's when I want the legit audio to come in. I'm going to move that up as well. And this video can come in a little bit later as well. So it should look like this.
all of man's problems arise.
So that legitimate audio is starting with the recording audio. One thing I'm going to do too is hit C on my keyboard, create a cut in the audio layer that's filmed from the phone, and just increase the volume on this a little bit, just so we get a little bit more of that clicking sound effect to it.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room.
Okay, so in the beginning, we only want the computer screen. So I'm going to delete a little bit of Naval here and see where we need to keep him in and keep him out.
All of man's problems arise because
So as soon as he says because, that's when I want like to show other different imagery. So we can honestly keep Naval out for quite some time here, but we'll get into that. All right, so the one thing we want is to switch as soon as he says because to more of like actual movie-esque type B-roll. But before we actually get into that, we want to create some text in the beginning. And then we also want to cut down the rest of the video. I only want certain parts in it. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to add all that extra layers on top to make the video look really good. So let's go through the cut downs.
problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone.
So 30 minutes alone, as soon as he's done saying that, I want to add a cut, and then I want to find the next heavy hitting part. So as I was saying, one of the keys to this is keeping it very short and sweet, anywhere between 5 to 20 seconds max, like 20 seconds being the highest that you want to go with it. You really want to keep this short. So when it comes to cutting down the quote, you want to find the really heavy hitting stuff, the stuff that's really going to resonate with people, and you want to cut out everything else. So let's watch this and see what we can find.
And it's very true. I always needed to be stimulated. And when the iPhone came along,
So I think when he says, and when the iPhone came along should be the next sentence, and we could cut out where he's talking about himself here.
when the iPhone
So I'm going to create a cut right here. As soon as he says, and when, I'm going to delete everything to the left. We can ripple delete that. But one thing I want to do here as well, we can honestly get rid of this audio here too and just move this one up. But one thing I want to do here is add a little bit of a pause. This is important for these kinds of videos too. We don't want to go Mr. Beastification, like cut after cut after cut, letting the quote and letting him what he's saying just breathe a little bit so people can process what Naval just said or whoever you're using. It will allow the flow of the video to be just a little bit more smoother. It'll feel a little bit more dramatic if you add pauses in the right area. Of course, there's nuances to this and you really have to judge for yourself and where a pause would be most effective. But for here, after he's saying this very heavy hitting quote,
himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when
30 minutes alone, we want to add a slight pause. So I'm just going to move this to the right.
sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the
Even a little bit more than that. We could just go a little bit more.
30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead.
That's good. And one thing that I also noticed is when he says, and when the iPhone came along, he stutters a little bit. So to keep the video flowing nice and smoothly, we want to get rid of that stutter. So this is where he says, and then.
And when
or in when.
And
then he stutters right here, and I'm just going to cut this part out and ripple delete that.
And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. I would never be bored again.
When the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. That's another very heavy-hitting quote that can use a pause after it.
I would never be bored again. Even if I'm standing in line, I'm on my iPhone, and I thought it was great.
Okay, so now I'm just finding another area that he has a very heavy-hitting quote.
You actually want to, again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. And now I look forward to solitary confinement.
So right there, that's where I want to end it.
Boredom was dead. You actually want...
So I also think having a little bit of a pause here between his next quote will allow this to really sink in.
Boredom was dead. You actually...
Even a little bit more.
Was dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind.
Okay, cool. So that's the cut down right there. You're just finding the hard hitting parts and keeping them in and letting things breathe to establish that flow. That's what cut downs are really all about, is establishing the flow of the video. Of course, when we add other things, it's going to help with the flow. The next thing that we want to apply to this is the background music. As I was stating in the beginning, background music is extremely important for this type of video. It causes emotion to come out in the viewer. And if you find a great background song or background music that fits with the tone and what the speaker is saying, then you're going to have a winning video. So I found this song here. It was trending on Instagram and I found it on YouTube just to download it. It's called Think of Me Once in a While, Take Care. So if you're following along and you want the project files and this song as well, you can download that if you're in the community. If not, you could find this particular piece on YouTube. You just need to look up this right here and you'll find it. So what I want to do here is find the area where the song really starts to pick up, and it's right about here. So I've listened to it before, and I'm going to make it in point. Going to drag my playhead to the right and make it out point. Just going to take the audio and drag this in. So I also want it to start as soon as he's speaking here.
All of man's problems.
And I want to find a good area for it to start too.
All of man.
So make sure there's no like weird hiccup in it.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by.
Then we just want to really lower this quite a bit.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone...
So we're going to delete this video here.
And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. And now I look forward to...
Okay, and then make a cut here. Should be good. All right, now it's time to get into layering this and making it a little bit more in that by maximize style. First thing we want to focus on is the text here. There's going to be a part where we handle the text in After Effects, and I'll show you how to do that. But if you don't want to do this in After Effects, that's totally fine. I'm going to show you how to just do it in Premiere, and it's going to look just as good. Going to After Effects is just going to have that little bit of a extra touch to it that makes it look a tad bit nicer. But like I'm saying, if you just want to stick in Premiere, totally fine. I'm going to show you how to do that now. And if you want to do it in After Effects, keep on following this, because at the end, I'll bring it into After Effects and show you what to do from there. So the first thing to do is go to your type tool, and we want to figure out what he's saying here actually. So let's see what he's saying.
All of man's problems arise because...
Yeah. All right. So before because, so we want all of man's problems arise. We want that on screen. So I'm going to bring my playhead to the beginning. I'm going to go up to workspaces here, click on that. You'll see the captions and graphics. You want to click on that. This will allow us to create some text here. So you see this in the side here, and you're going to click on that and then click on the screen. And we're just going to type in all. Now we need to stylize this text. So in the right hand corner here, you should see essential graphics. If you don't, go to your window and you'll want to check off essential graphics, and you can see all these controls here. Once again, I'll be giving you the assets in this entire project, so along with the font, but you could probably find this font online for free if you looked it up, but this will be there for you to download. If you're in the community, you'll get this font to go along with this project. All right, so now that we got that font, we want to scale it up a tad bit. I'm going to scale it up a little bit more. Okay, it looks good. I'm going to position it to the left here. Now we want to figure out when he says the next word. So I'm going to play it.
All of...
Right about here, we're all of. The easiest thing to do from here is take this text, hold down Option on a Mac or Control on a keyboard, click it and drag it up to duplicate it. And then we're just going to move it to the right, double click on the text and just type in of. Then what we could do is go back to our selection tool, move this into the middle. I'm going to move all to the middle a little bit more. There we go. And now we need to figure out when he says the next text.
All of man's.
So right about here, he says man's. I'm going to do the exact same thing by duplicating this by holding Option and clicking and dragging up. It will duplicate that layer for you. Gonna drag it to the right to align with when he says man's. Change this text to man's, and then we want to move it to the right here.
All of man's problems.
All right, so now that we have the man's text, we need to figure out when he says problems.
Man's problem.
So right here, you can see in the audio layer, that's where he says problems. So I like always doing like just a frame before he actually says it, but we're going to do the same thing here. Hold down Option to duplicate, dragging it up, move it to the right. Then we can drag this to the bottom here and type in problems.
Problems arise.
So right here, he says arise. We're going to do the same thing. Duplicate this, move it to the right, type in arise. Move that to the right. And then we can play around with positioning and scaling just a little bit. I'm going to scale this down so it fits under that computer screen. So I'm going to also make a rise the exact same size as well. All right. So if we play this back, it should look pretty good.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot.
That looks really good. What we need to do is also have this text cut out as soon as he says because then we're going to switch it to some film B-roll, but this looks pretty good for right now.
All of man's problems arise.
And here is where you can decide to do something in After Effects to make it look a little bit nicer, where we're going to 3D track the text to the monitor and it'll just go along with the camera movement. But if you don't want to operate in After Effects and just want to stay in Premiere, then this right here is totally fine. It still looks really good, but as I was saying before, After Effects really adds that finishing touch or that extra sauce on top to make it look a tad bit nicer and a little bit more premium. So if you don't want to go to After Effects, you can skip to the next chapter, but for the people who want to stay in After Effects, this is what we're going to do here. First off, highlight all of the layers here, including the video layer and audio layer. I'm going to right click, go to replace with After Effects composition. This thing's going to pop up. You just want to save it in a folder that you're working with or right next to the Premiere project file that you're working with. From there, you'll notice everything is in After Effects here. And now we just need to 3D track the video layer and then parent the text to that tracking. To easily do that, all you have to do is look up 3D camera tracker in the Effects and Presets tab here. And if you don't see the Effects and Presets tab, this would be in Window and you'll see Effects and Presets. Make sure that is checked off. We want to drag this onto our video layer. As soon as you do that, it's going to start analyzing the video. This might take a little bit. I'm going to have a cut here once it's done analyzing. All right, so it's done analyzing. And what just happened here is it created a bunch of tracking points within our video layer here that's 3D aware. So if you see that I'm dragging my cursor around, you'll see this target kind of looking icon thing here. If I drag it around in certain areas, you'll notice it starts to match the depth or the 3D environment that is going on here. It just creates some tracking points for us. So what we need to do is have the monitor tracked here, and we needed to have it in the right depth. So I'm noticing all these corners here. So if we could just click on one, hold down Shift, click on another, click on the one on the bottom right, bottom left, and now it's tracking from all 4 of these points, which is exactly what we need. Once you have those clicked, right click, you'll see Create Null in Camera. Click on that. Now that we have our null in camera, we need to make all of these text layers 3D. To do that, just highlight all of them. And you'll see this little 3D icon and you'll see these checkboxes here. You just check them and they all should turn into 3D layers. From there, while they're all still highlighted, we want to go over to this parent and link. And just since they're all highlighted, just click one of these parent pick whip things and drag it to the null layer. Once you do that, the text will match the tracking layers. What that null is doing, it's parent to those tracking points that we highlighted. And then the text here is parented to the null. So if we just want to control the null, that would control all the text as well. And you can see that it's tracked. The text is moving with the movement of the camera.
All of man's problems arise.
It's very subtle. Might be hard for you to tell. One thing that I am going to do for the problems in arise text, I'm going to adjust the rotation just a bit. So I hit R on my keyboard with the problems layer highlighted, and we want to go over to X rotation. I'm just going to move it back a little bit. So it's kind of swiveling back and it looks a little bit more underneath the monitor here. I'm going to do the same exact thing for arise. So I'm going to hit R on my keyboard, go over to X rotation and change that to 15, just like how the problems rotation is. And that just makes it look a little bit better. I could add a little bit of a Y rotation to it. You just got to mess around a little bit to make it seem like it fits within the 3D layer pretty nice. That's pretty good. And there you have it. That's exactly how you 3D track text to your footage here. And that's all we need to do in After Effects. Now we're going to hop back into Premiere.
All of man's problems arise.
And now that you can see that in Premiere, the linked layers here, and we can see the track text with the footage. All right, so right after that, we want to immediately go to B-roll from movies. As I was saying before in the intro, using B-rolls from cinematic movies is extremely important. Staying away from that art list or just that B-roll that you get from a royalty-free website or whatever. It just gives it a very commercial feel. It doesn't feel like something cinematic. And this whole piece here is supposed to be very cinematic. So finding B-roll from a movie is extremely important. So I have this clip from Good Will Hunting, which is a pretty great clip. You want to find things that match from what the person's saying to the B-roll that you're getting from a movie. So I have this little clip here in the beginning, and I like the fact it's like an overhead type of thing. And what we can do is just zoom in enough to cut out this person, since Naval is talking about being in a room alone. We want to show somebody alone. We want to find B-roll that matches that. In this case, this one doesn't entirely do that, but we can kind of force it to. So what I'm going to do here is drag this playhead to the right. By the way, to get this screen here, you just double click on the footage and you can use this timeline to kind of edit it a little bit. So moving this to the right before it cuts, I'm going to hit mark out. Then I'm just going to drag the video only onto my timeline. To clean up the timeline a little bit, we could drag this footage down and drag that down as well. From here, we just want to zoom this in quite a bit. So go over to effects and controls, click on your layer, zoom this in. Once again, you'll have access to this project file if you're part of the community. And if you want to have access to this project file, well, become part of the community. There's so many great things that are happening inside, along with a challenge to create this style. And there's a cash prize for the winner. All right, so I'm zooming this in so we can just have him in there. And that's all we really need.
Arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room.
So we have this. Now, when he starts to say in a room alone, I think changing the clip just to keep the video flowing would suit this pretty well. So I just deleted that next half of it, and we're going to find another clip to implement here. So I'm going to go all the way to the end here. I already know there's a good clip. So we could just show him sitting here, cut him out of it. So let's find out right when it cuts. I think right when he starts to like take a deep breath here would be the best. And I just marked the end point. Then we can just drag the video only into our timeline. Scale this up as well. So go to effects and controls, click on that, scale this up, move it to the right. Should be good.
For 30 minutes alone. And when
moving it over, because he starts to smile at the end. This is kind of supposed to be dramatic, so I don't think having him smile is the best.
Self in a room for 30 minutes alone.
Okay, and then cut right there when he's done saying his thing. And then for the next part, we want to find some more footage.
By himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came.
So for that, I found a great video that represents kind of what Naval's talking about here, that everybody's just consumed by their phones. It's this video I found on YouTube where it's the New Year's in London, I believe, and you could just see everybody on their phone. I think it matches this footage or this quote pretty well. So this is an example that you don't always have to use a piece of content that's from a cinematic film, but you still don't want to use a commercialized B-roll thing that you get from Artlist or any of those stock footage websites. You want to find things on YouTube that just feel a little bit more natural. So I'm going to drag this down. Obviously, we need to scale this up.
The iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually.
When the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. I think that looks pretty good here.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually want.
So I think just having this for when he says when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. I think this is just perfect. We don't need to change anything. But when he says his next thing, having another cinematic piece of content in there would be pretty good. So one thing to find cinematic pieces of content or cinematic movies is just look up on YouTube, like most cinematic movie scenes, or if you think of a great movie, just look up on YouTube, best scenes from X movie, and you'll find a lot of really great stuff. So what I did was look up Blade Runner and the best scenes from Blade Runner, and I found a pretty cool part that fits what Naval is saying. So I'm gonna find that right here. Boredom was dead. So this kind of fits the whole boredom was dead thing, because he's just laying there and he looks bored. I actually think he's dying in the scene. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I watched the movie. He's either dying in the scene or being really bored, but either way, it just looks like he's being bored here. So I'm just gonna keep that just like that.
Dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind.
So when he says again here, that's when I want to change it. We got to find that flow in having things up just long enough, but also not boring the viewer.
You actually want to, again,
and the best way to do that is also find the inflectuation points within the person's speech. So how is he speaking? When does he pause? When does he kind of switch up of how he's speaking? Whenever like an inflection point like that happens, when something switches up, that usually gives you a clear sign to, change whatever's happening on screen. Now, it always doesn't work like that. There's nuances to it. You just want to really try to find that flow. It's something that I can't necessarily tell you for any specific project, but you just gotta keep on watching it back and see how it feels, see how smooth the viewing experience is. So I have all this B-roll here on YouTube. I literally just looked up best movie cinematic scenes and I found this great video here with a ton of cinematic scenes. And I want to show this guy who kind of looks like he's on his phone looking down. I'm just going to keep that in. So I marked an in and out point, just going to drag the footage. We also need to scale it up. So scaling this up, we want to obviously have him in the middle of the screen here.
Rest your mind. You want to learn.
So right when he says you want to learn, you can see that inflectuation point within his speech. He stops a little bit or has a pause here, and then he begins another sentence. So that's a good sign to find a new piece of clip. So that's a good sign to find a new clip. I think one really nice thing here is tying it all back together with the very first clip that we showed, which was Good Will Hunting, and having them a little bit more in a cheery state. So there was a certain scene here that I have to find right here. So them sitting on the bench is perfect. Just marking it in and out and bringing that into our actual timeline. We can scale this up, scaling that up, and then we want to position them in the middle.
To your mind. Now,
So I'm going to have it play all the way to where he says, I look forward to. And when he does say that, we want to scale Naval up and have him full screen. Because now he's talking about himself. So it makes sense to show him. And it's also the end of the scene, which kind of coincides with the beginning here.
All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. Now, I look forward to solitary confinement.
There we have it. So this is coming together. There's just one thing that we need to focus on, and that is the text. Now, there's a very specific way to go about doing the caption text here. I'm going to let you in on some secrets with it. So make sure you have the captions and graphics workspace still open with the essential graphics here where you could see it. Once that's open, you should see a tab here in the top left where it says text. If you don't, go over to window and just check off text here and you'll see it. Here it'll say create captions from transcript. We're going to click that. There's some settings that we need to mess with here. So do the drop down for captioning preferences, drag minimum duration in seconds all the way to the left. Take the maximum length in characters and make this, what was it, like I think about like 15 here. Then this is really important as well. For the lines, check off single. If you don't do that, it's going to look a little bit off. From here, you can just hit transcribe and create captions. All right, so our captions are up here. First off, we could delete these ones in the very beginning since we already did tracked captions here. So I'm going to hit delete. Now that when he starts to actually speak, we want to show these captions. One thing to watch out for as well, this will ruin the flow of your video if you don't catch this, but you'll notice that the text here pops up before the video pops up. We want to make sure that these things are aligned here. And you'll notice this quite often as you go about editing the captions in this video. So make sure that's aligned. Now we can focus on the actual style of the text. So we're going to just change it to that Europa Grotesque font. Once again, you'll be able to have this font if you're in the community. If not, you could just look it up online and just join the community if you're not in it. I'm telling you, a lot of great things are happening. A lot of people are becoming very successful editors and advanced level editors working for some pretty serious clients. All right, from here we want to, in the zone area, click the middle of it. So it's in the middle of our screen. We're going to scale it up. So right around like 95 or 94 is good.
Because you cannot.
So you'll notice that now it's not going over to the next caption text. So to apply the style that we did here to the rest of the captions, all we need to do is make sure that we have this caption here selected that we already messed with. Go over to track style where it says none, drop that down and you'll see create style. Go ahead and click that. From here, you can name that style. I'm just going to call it BM for by maximize and then hit OK. After you hit OK, you'll notice that this goes into your project area here. And if I bring my playhead to the right, you can see that all the text is changed to that exact font and sizing.
Because he cannot sit by himself in a room.
Okay, so the key here is to, once again, match the text with the inflectuation points of Naval's speaking. And we want to match the size of the text with the heavy hitting words that Naval says. So I'm going to go through this and show you what to change.
Because you cannot sit.
Okay, so where he says because he cannot, that's like all words that can be in one thing on screen. But when he says sit, that's when the heavy words start to really come in. So I'm going to make a cut. As soon as he says sit, I can see it in the timeline here. I'm going to make a cut in my caption. I'm going to bring my playhead to the left. I'm going to hit V on my keyboard, highlight both of these captions where it says because he cannot sit. And then as soon as you highlight them, you'll see here, this area in the text window and under captions, you'll see that the text is highlighted here. And you'll also see this icon where it says merge captions. Go ahead and hit this. So we have because he cannot sit, but we want sit on the next caption over. So all we have to do is delete it here, then go over to our next caption over where it says sit or where he says sit, and then delete the rest of the text. And since he says sit here and it's really starting to be an impactful word, I want to scale it up.
Because he cannot sit by him.
Same with by himself. These words are starting to become very like impactful words. So I'm going to scale that up.
He cannot sit by himself in a room.
Going to scale up in a room a little bit.
Room for 30.
So for 30 minutes alone, we want 30 minutes alone showing all at one time. That's really important. So we just want to have 4 pop up and we can keep 4 small like it is. So all I'm doing is making a cut in the captions just where he says 4. We can delete 30 here, highlight both of these captions, merge them. Delete the 4 in the beginning, and then there we have it.
Room for 30 minutes.
And we can scale this up a little bit. Also, one thing to note, periods. Totally fine to leave on. It actually helps with the effect of the person viewing it and really understanding what the speaker is saying, and with all the pause points. It helps with the flow. Normally, I usually remove punctuation, but in this case, it works out.
Room for 30 minutes.
One thing I also noticed with the caption text is that there's a little bit of a shadow effect that we need to remove. So I'm going to highlight all the captions, and you'll see shadow here. You can just uncheck that off, and now it'll look a little bit cleaner.
And when the iPhone.
So another instance here where the caption actually appears before the cut in the clip and before Naval starts speaking again. We want this to align, otherwise it ruins the flow of the video. So I just move that over so it's aligning with that cut that we see here, and then we can move this caption over as well to align with that cut.
And when the iPhone.
One thing we want to do for this section, it's very hard to read the text, but if we moved it up here, it will be a lot easier. So we want to figure out when this section ends.
The iPhone came along, boredom was dead.
So boredom was dead. I'm going to highlight all those captions that are hovering over this footage here. Then we can just move this up right here. Perfect. Okay, so he says, and when we can make a cut here because we want to remove the, because it doesn't match his inflectuations in his speaking. Then the iPhone. So we can have the just appear. I'm going to make a cut here, change this to the. I want to lowercase that actually.
The iPhone came.
The iPhone came. So I'm going to make a cut right before he says came, and I just want iPhone there. And the iPhone is a very impactful word, a power word here. So we want to scale this up quite a bit.
The iPhone came along.
Then for came along, we can merge these together. I'm actually going to remove the comma here, but I only want to keep periods in. Boredom was dead. Boredom is a very impactful word here, so we're going to scale it up quite a bit. Same for was dead. We want to scale that up.
Dead. And
then the classic thing here that Adobe doesn't do, it doesn't align with the cut. So we want to make sure that the caption does, and we're going to bring this one over as well.
You actually want to
again. So the inflectuation here is after he says 1, 2, and then he goes 1, 2, a little bit of a pause, and then again. So we want to remove again from the screen here as he's saying 1, 2.
Actually want to again rest.
Just keep again here.
Again, rest your mind.
So one thing I'm going to do here for rest, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And then when it says your mind, we're going to make that pretty big. So it's getting a little bit bigger.
Want to again rest your mind.
So those are very small details that help the visuals out, or it helps the video out as far as it performing well and looking well, as a matter of fact, because it's like a little bit of a buildup. It's small text. Again, rest. Okay, that's a little bit more of a power word. And then your mind. That's like the main point. So we want to have that as big as possible. So having that little bit of scale up in text, it's something that's very small, but it's what separates the professional editors from all the average editors out there. And certainly if you want to become a professional editor and learn stuff like this, join the Leverage Editor program, and you'll also be included in our community.
Again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. And now I look for.
Okay, so there's some things that we need to do here.
You want to learn how to settle.
We want to make sure that this caption aligns with the cut in the video.
You want to learn how to settle into your mind.
So learn's a power word. I'm going to scale it up.
Learn how to settle into your.
So I think when he says mind, we want to keep that really big. So I'm just going to keep into your. So when he says mind, we want to keep that really big, but for into your, we can keep that small. So I'm going to section that out here.
To your mind. Settle into your mind.
So I think right around here, he says mind. I'm going to make a cut, go to the left here, delete mind here, and go to the right, delete into your, then scale up mind.
To your mind. Now,
I think now comes up a little bit too early, so I'm going to just kind of delete it a little bit in the beginning here, and then move mind to the right and fill that out a little bit more.
into your mind. Now,
Okay, it's looking good. One thing to note is that the text, I feels like it's a little bit too close to their heads. So I'm going to highlight all the caption text that is overlaying this certain video here. And we're just going to move it up a bit. Just give their head a little bit more of a breathing room there.
learn how to settle into your mind. Now, I look forward.
Okay, another thing here is caption doesn't align with the cut. So make sure that does.
I look forward to solitary confinement.
Okay, so make sure that caption goes all the way to the end. Gonna highlight all of this text here and move it down just so it's like kind of a little bit over his chin.
I look forward to solitary confinement. All of man's problems arise because he cannot sit by himself in a room for 30 minutes alone. And when the iPhone came along, boredom was dead. You actually want to, again, rest your mind. You want to learn how to settle into your mind. Now, I look forward to solitary confinement.
And there it is. We have the by maximize style type of video completely created. You can go and do this on your own or check out the project file that's in the community. Once again, if you want to take yourself from an average or okay level editor to an advanced level editor who can edit videos for the top level influencers like I have and like some of our community members are currently doing, then join the Leverage Editor program. In this, we're going to unlock the secrets for you to become an advanced editor. And we're also going to give you the secrets to attracting high paying clients. This also comes along with our community where we now have coaches, mentors, challenges. We're currently doing a buy maximize type of challenge where there's a cash prize along with a Danco style challenge that's happening right now. And you can learn that kind of stuff or how to do that challenge in the community. So there's a bunch of things like that in there. If you want to be an advanced level editor, go ahead and join right now. There's only 5 days left to join as we want to keep the seats very limited so that each person who comes through can get that individual attention and make sure that they're succeeding. So click that link in the description to join and I'll hope to see you on the other side within the community and program. Peace.